go.
Thank you. I'll just say, Lisa, I've got to leave about 8:30.
Okay, Roger, thank you.
So if I disappear, you'll know what's happened.
Right, welcome everybody to tonight's planning meeting. Before we start, can I just say a massive thank you to my Vice Chair, Mark, for taking the helm while I've been off ill. Thank you very, very much. I do appreciate you stepping in like that. You've been absolutely marvellous. So thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody here for the public session? Nope. Thanks, Nina. Any apologies?
Apologies from Buckinghamshire councillors Tim Mills and Warren White.
Thank you, Nina.
And Councillor Mordew.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Any declarations? Anybody? No. Thank you. Right, minutes of the 1st of February. Can we receive those?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Right, item 4, Neighbourhood Plan, Vale of Aylesbury Plan, to receive any updates. Paul or Sheena?
Just to remind members of the Neighbourhood Plan Subcommittee, there is a meeting on Wednesday, which the agenda will come out for tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll report back to the next meeting.
Thanks, Paul. Sheena, do you have anything to update?
Very quickly, just to say, as members probably have seen, the VALP further main modifications page has been updated to say that the inspector is considering further hearings and watch this space effectively for timings, etc.
Okay, good. Thank you. Councillor Ivans?
Yeah, are we going, you know, there's been this document, it's only a very much outline planning on the east-west arc. Would we cover it under this heading, or where would we cover it? It's come out in the last week. It's really just a sort of scoping thing of what it's going to cover, rather than coming out particularly with any proposals. But I think it needs to be on our agenda so that when something happens with it, we discuss it, and when there isn't anything, we don't. You know what I mean?
No, you've got a very good point. Yeah. Should we have it on our agenda along with item 4? What do members think? Paul, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stotchbury?
Thank you very much for raising that, Paul. The Cambridge Arc also, we should include, that is the growth of the possible proposal for 1 million houses across the arc. We ought to, including that, they still haven't finally said what they're doing with the expressway, and those two items, good or ill, are going to predict the way North Buckinghamshire actually lives. So we need to keep a focus on that. I did historically take a motion for the district council on similar matters to do with those issues. So I think that we have discussed it, and from this council, so we must maintain our interest, because where the route goes of the Cambridge, the expressway, if you recall, both Buckinghamshire County Council at the time and Vale District Council at the time did not sign the confidential memorandum. So I believe we both Milton Keynes and Oxfordshire County Council signed the memorandum of understanding to understand the route.
Yeah.
At the moment, there's no official knowledge in Buckinghamshire of where the route would go through Buckinghamshire if it's taken forward. Of course, who knows if the funding will be there if they want to do it, but nevertheless, it will sort of stagger houses across it. And there was scoping documents of probably 2 large accommodations the size of Milton Keynes along the route. You know, so it's something which will change our Buckinghamshire in the north radically. And thank you for bringing that up. We do need to keep on that.
Definitely. Councillor Cole?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Of course, what Robin's saying is underlined by the fact that Buckinghamshire Council wants nothing to do with this this Oxford-Cambridge arc, we've expressed the opposite. We do want to be involved, but the unitary authority has been quite clear it wants nothing to do with it.
Absolutely. Councillor RB.
Yeah, having read through the document, it's evident that the government are going to pursue this and make it something equivalent, they say, to the National Planning Policy Framework. So, frankly, Buckinghamshire Council, no matter what they say, are not going to be able to ignore it because it will be integral to the local plans. So, you know, they can sit for as long as they want in a seat at the shore edge, sit in the waves to go back, but they ought to be engaging now in these debates, so that Buckinghamshire as a county is looked after, along with all the other counties, and our interests are represented. They're just sticking their heads in the sand like a proverbial ostrich. It's appalling.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think you'll get any arguments on that one, John. Robin?
Just to say, the Buckinghamshire Council Cabinet has made a decision that they don't want to be involved. They've never taken anything substantial to council to ratify that agreement as the opinion of the entire Buckinghamshire Council. They made a statement in a press release, didn't they, after a cabinet meeting, that they are against it. Now, I thought democracy worked slightly more linear than that, that that they should at least consult whatever, because North Buckinghamshire and South Buckinghamshire probably have got different interests in this, and probably have got largely different opinions. So I think maybe we need to politely write to them and ask them whether they intend to take their view to a council meeting in the future and discuss it, or whether they're happy to leave it. Because what it basically says is the large cabinet of Buckinghamshire Council, which has not that many members from North Buckinghamshire on it, has taken a view not to be involved in it. I would hazard to guess that many of the former district and present and former county members who are now on the authority till May probably want to have an interesting discussion about it for the very same reasons we are, because the tarmac will go through our part of Buckinghamshire. It won't go through South Buckinghamshire. And though, if you remember, the county council's opinion on the consultation was they wanted to use it as some form of bypass for Aylesbury. And then there was other views. So there was all that information's out there where it may have gone, but they've not engaged. And they also did this with the SEMLEC, didn't they? They chose to form their own sort of economic group and didn't join any of the other groups. And the logic behind that was that in the old system, they had all 4 districts and the county as have voting rights, and then they just reduced to 1 vote. And those decisions of those economic groups are through a majority vote. So their logic behind that was they could be outvoted very easily and have to go along with what the other group said. So I think we need some explanation around this, maybe how they see it going forward, how they see this planning issue going forward, whether they're going to engage. I don't believe that on the senior officer level they wouldn't be engaging in conversations, because they have a responsibility, irrespective of the councillors, to look after Buckinghamshire, because it's in their job description. So I do think we need to push them in some way. How that appropriate letter can be wrote, I don't think it needs to be provocative. It just needs to be inquiry.
Okay, so do members agree that we write to Buckinghamshire Council and ask if they're going to have any input in this at any time, or they're going to discuss it with their own membership? Yeah, Paul?
Great.
Yeah, just to remind councillors, we did write to Buckinghamshire Council to ask for their view, and we've got their view back quite clearly. So we could go on the narrower point of, are they going to discuss it with the whole council rather than just cabinet? But I suspect we wouldn't get a very constructive response.
All right, members happy to try that though?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Right, action reports. 5.1 is Appendix A. Does anybody have anything to raise on this? Mark?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. On the first page, enforcement reports, Page Hill, Councillor Mordew unfortunately isn't with us now, but he said he was looking into progress, but just to update members, this is where there's a perceived land grab alongside 16 Hilltop Avenue. They spent this weekend digging up all the turf, which is public turf, and increasing their flower beds. So I think that should be brought to the attention of enforcement, because that is actually going through enforcement at the moment. And the other one on the second page, vehicles parked on Roundabout, is a photograph of a second car which was there for about 2 weeks. It wasn't there this morning, but the silver car with the sign on top still is, and it's been turned around through 180 degrees. That vehicle, the silver one, you'll recall, is not taxed or registered on the DVLA sites. So we have asked for that to be treated as an abandoned car, and nothing's happening. That's now been there, sitting there since September. We're now just about to go into March.
That's disgraceful. John?
Yeah, another item, I mean, I agree obviously with what the Councillor Coles just said. The other item that I'm still down to report on is the Freedom of Information inquiries. That's more or less drawn to a halt now. I never managed to get any real detail about the pre-meeting briefing that was given by the planning officers to the members of the Strategic Sites Committee. I was simply told that the information was broadcast in the meeting itself. I have reasons to believe that is not entirely true because of some intelligence that I was given. But nonetheless, I don't think I can pursue this any further. I do note, of course, that the action group locally in Morton is continuing to pursue this, I think, very, very well. They've gone through the Queen's Council's report recently with a fine tooth comb and pulled out some very pertinent questions which they've sent to Councillor White, which I think deserve to be addressed. I think we need to watch this space. I do think it seems likely now that decision is going to be looked at again in the future, and so it should be. And I obviously commend all the work that's been going on in Morton to tackle this, which obviously has an impact upon us here in the town. And just as an aside, I would also add that I do think that the Strategic Sites Committee is either wittingly or unwittingly cover for a place to decide controversial local planning decisions. It means local councillors don't have to actually make the decision one way or the other. So they actually export it to a rather more anonymous group for the whole of the county, and therefore the heat is taken out from the hands, as it were, of the local councillors. And if that has been done deliberately, then that's a very cynical act of governance that I would criticise the Buckinghamshire Council for. But proving that, of course, would be another matter altogether.
Absolutely. Before I take you, Robin, can we go back to what Mark said about the cars? Paul, have you got any suggestions?
Not beyond what we've already done, I don't think. Unless Catherine's got any other thoughts.
Kath?
No, because I mean, this has been going on a long while. I've done it via TFB. I've done it other ways, and I really don't know. Short of having it towed away ourselves and let him sue us.
Not a bad idea. Yes. Okay, Robin.
Am I correct that we took the powers on to remove signage along the bypass?
Yeah.
And we had them took on. So I think the town clerk needs to just explore that a little, because it's got a sign on it, hasn't it, Mark?
It has.
And I think we could treat it as signage and remove it. I would propose that we check the legalities out of that, the town clerk does. And if it's legal, I propose that remove it on the basis that it's signage.
It is signage.
And we and then if they want to recover it from us on the same basis as any other signage, they can recover it. I don't know if the town clerk's able to do that. The other matter was something completely different. It was to respond to John's thing. Should I take that one first? And I'll come to John's comment. Yeah,
okay. Paul, what do you think about it being signage?
It's tempting, isn't it? I'll have a look and we'll have a go. I can't make any promises, but it's worth a go.
Thank you. Okay. Right, what's your second point, Robin?
Anthony was going to speak on this point, so I think I'll wait until Anthony's spoken.
Okay. Anthony, what would you like to say, my love?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, my love, I like that.
You don't speak often.
It's a red letter day for me. All I was going to say, whilst I absolutely agree with hiking it out, where are we going to put it? If we remove it, where are we going to put it?
The car or the sign?
Well, you know, yes, it's great. Let's move it because it's under signage. Where are we going to put it?
Well, we put signs in our depot, don't we, normally, Paul?
Yeah, we'll have a think about it.
Just a thought, guys.
I just think it would send a strong signal to them, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
And if we find out through the town clerk that it's legal, perhaps we could do a little press release that we removed it. I think the public will probably be pleased.
Andy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If, as Councillor Cole says, it's not taxed, it's not, so we can most probably just flog it if it doesn't belong to anyone, and give the money to the mayor's charity.
Sell the car.
How much do you think those old cars are worth?
Tenner.
You'd be lucky to get 100 quid for them.
Yes, a scrap merchant would take it.
As enthusiastic as I am, could we leave the town clerk to check the legalities of this out? Because let's not run away with ourselves. I'm saying it because I think it might be a way forward. It's none of us which will go to court. It will be the town clerk. So let the town clerk check the legalities of this out.
Yeah, no, I think we've agreed that,
but why
Robin.
I'm not happy to propose that we end up putting Paul in court. So I want Paul to check out that it's
we've agreed that
possible to do.
We've agreed that, Robin. We're going to let Paul check that out.
Yeah, you know. On the other point, while I'm speaking, John talked about the Mays Morton development. I was sat in a local development committee meeting only just recently, where local members, after I proposed it, objected to an application in Mays Morton. It caused it caused difficulty because they hadn't realised that the Constitution allowed me to do that. I didn't have to wait for the officer's report. I could propose anything at any point. And Councillor Tim Mills was happy to second me, as long as I reduced my objections to a narrow field of vision, because I put quite a lot in.
No,
it was duly voted on, and the application was turned down. So that was a route through which could have been taken on from the Strategic Development Control, because they waited to the officer. I watched the meeting, and the officer was leading the discussions, and when they tried to put anything in, which was, they could have gone for deferral and forced that to a vote, but they didn't. They accepted and lost the recommendation for or against. I think if they'd have gone for deferral to the Vale plan, which had been agreed, they may have got a different decision, because that's not difficult. That's easy to say, but I was definitely trying to use the known rules of the game to get my point across. It was a shock to many of the district and ex-councillors because they never had anybody do that before. So I don't know whether that means that local area planning committees make different decisions to strategic development committees. They were both involved in a similar area of land, and they both were in Mays Morton, and two out of the councillors voted against me, and all the rest agreed with me. So it is interesting. If nothing else, it's a demonstration that the local knowledge of the application probably influenced that decision. So whether it would have been different in the Strategic Development Control, as John's quite rightly said, we can't prove it either way.
Yeah.
But there are two direct examples there. Both,
all right, well, thanks for that.
And I must say that it was awfully useful using Caroline Cummins' reasons to object.
All right, can we move on then? So Appendix B, to receive email correspondence re Candleford Court. Would anybody like to speak on this, Mark?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think we've all noted the extensive correspondence between Warren White and the Senior Complaints and Quality Advisor for the Guinness Partnership. Two things stand out on this. First of all, that the Guinness Senior Complaints Advisor was apparently unaware there'd been the flooding. He said he was sorry to hear from Warren about it. Question there is, why didn't he know about it? The other point is that when the planning permission was given for Candleford Court, the Section 106 legal agreement had obligations and conditions that, as Warren says, don't seem to be currently in operation. He drew their attention to the 8th schedule, the flood alleviation scheme obligations, including paragraph 1, where there should be a flood warning system installed in the building, and paragraph 2 referring to proper and efficient operation of the flood wall and any apparatus. My question is, there was no notice given of the flooding. Why not? Who has been monitoring these conditions that Aylesbury Vale District Council, as was, applied to this development, and why have enforcement not been keeping an eye on what's going on there? We're going to have exactly the same problem at Crown Court Care Home if we're not careful when that's finished. And of course, that's similarly in a floodplain, but it's very, very much for vulnerable people, much more so than Candleford Court. So we need those questions answered. Obviously, Warren is in correspondence and he's waiting for answers. But in the meantime, I think we should put pressure on enforcement to see why they are not enforcing conditions and obligations that were put on a major planning application.
Yeah, especially when we know, and they've been told it's in a floodplain. And with the care home, it's acknowledged that it's in a floodplain, but they're going on the Environment Agency's statistics that it isn't going to flood at the care home site, and so therefore it's absolutely fine to build on it. Well, we know completely differently, and so did those councillors that voted for the plan. Okay, Robin.
Thank you, Chairman. Candleford Court, curious, isn't it? I did, as a member of the Buckinghamshire Fire Authority, take up correspondence on the matter. And the officer responded to me on what process was going on. So in brief, they definitely stated it was CO, carbon monoxide. They definitely stated it was, you know, the diesel generator, and they definitely stated that they attended and they have given advice to the Property Management Committee about what they believe should do. Now, that further advice from that there would go to the Health and Safety Advisory to consider the liaison with the Health and Safety Executive. Now, what that is, a process that they go through if they don't get anything. But what they do say after that, and this is process, nothing unusual, the fire safety team will do a post-incident audit, which is underway. That audit will be to assess what took place and then determine whether any further action or inquiry needs to take place. Now, I think we can be reassured the fire authority used all their powers to pursue what they are. And of course, what you can't say in all that is, and they wouldn't say in that, is they don't proportion fault, because anyone who knows an inquiry, you can't proportion fault for it. It's an inquiry. So we're doing that. Now, I am aware through my constant consultation with the residents that one of the residents there, who's a tremendous gentleman, Stephen Smith, has made sure that they've done an audit of the vulnerable residents in there, and he's gone round and got all the names to the housing association. There also, as we are aware, people lost property being vehicles there. We're not sure quite where that goes. That isn't our concern. In this, I don't mean it isn't our concern. We can't act on their behalf on that. That's between them and the landlord. But also, there was discussion about, because of the electrics being damaged through the flooding, what I was advised through my conversations is the internal fire alarm needs to be done. But then I was advised that legally they can just manage in a building like that with a smoke alarm. Now, I don't understand the technical difference between them. But what we do have to realise is that quite evidently this is a building which is containing, listening to what information, like quite a lot of vulnerable people.
Yeah.
And what I would like to put on record is that having met the fire officer on site and the way that they acted, and we got our cousins from Brackley who enjoyed a trip to Buckingham. There, so we had so many white helmets down there, it was amazing. But I think we should put in our records that we thank the fire service for their prompt action in this, and perhaps we should write to the fire authority as a town council saying we were pleased at what they did, because they did get in there quickly, and they did disperse the carbon monoxide, and they prevented any further harm or any harm. So that's what we want them to do, isn't it? So, but those.
Will we get to see a copy of their audit, Robin? Will we get to?
Oh, good question. That audit will be taking place now, and I mean, Mark might know from his time in a magistrate how sometimes these things take an inordinate time. We still haven't had the result of the flooding, the pollution of the river yet, have we? So these things do take an inordinate time. I didn't think it was appropriate when they wrote back to me on the 4th of February to start mithering on at them now. So that was a response to a correspondence before that, obviously. So I think maybe towards the end of the month, I'll follow it up and ask about the audit question.
Thank you. That'd be good if we can see a copy of that.
What you can't do is curry influence in these things. They have to be done really.
No, absolutely.
You know, we've all formed a view of it. Something went wrong, and it wasn't the residents' fault. But we can't proportion blame at this site for an inquiry to do, isn't it?
Roger.
Well, I've got to go actually. So I'll see some of you on Wednesday afternoon.
Right, thank you for dropping in.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I've got my daughter's on night duty, so I have to go up and feed her horses up at Stoke. So, back to the wilds.
Chairman, ask Roger, is there anything in those planning applications that Anthony can speak on your behalf on?
Yeah, I think so. There's nothing. The only thing we had concerns about the python, the trees at the back, and ensure that there was charging points for electric vehicles. I think that was the main thing. The design's okay, but yeah, I'm happy for Anthony to speak on my behalf if he so wishes.
Brilliant.
Anthony's happy to do it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You. Thanks, Roger.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Yeah, the thing that I picked up in the letter was about the carbon monoxide monitors, that as a tenant in a housing association property, I don't get an option of having one. We've got smoke alarms that are already inbuilt into the electrics, and carbon monoxide tests are the little monitors are put in yearly. So I was surprised to read that they will Guinness will be giving them to those who want them. I would just thought they were pretty much a standard part of social housing property. So I was sad to read that line in there. Does anybody else have anything to say on this letter? No? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Let me just scroll back up to the top. Right. Okay, so planning applications. And our first one is 7 Bartlett Place, Page Hill. Would anybody like to speak on this? John?
It seems fine to me. I have no objections to it.
Thank you. I think the only thing that I picked up was the neighbours' comment about they would like to make sure that there's no evening and weekend building works because everybody's still working from home at the moment. They wanted restrictions on that side of it, which we obviously can't, we can't have any say on when building can take place during the daytime. But if we can stipulate for the evening and weekend work hours to make sure that they're not bothering neighbours, I think that's important to add in. So there's no opposition to this one then? Happy to agree? Okay.
Just record my abstention, please.
Absolutely. Do you want that recorded on everyone, Robin?
Everyone, please. I'll
Thank
joke with you afterwards why that is.
No, we already know it. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next one, let me scroll down, is 5 Turnside Street, Lace Hill. Any comments on this, John?
Again, I don't have problems with this at all. It's fine.
Okay. Happy to agree this one?
Agreed.
Yep. Thank you. Next one is our Market Square, 15 Market Square. Any comments on this one? Right, John, and then Anthony.
Just to say, I think this is an improvement because they're obviously trying to put back some windows that are similar to the style of windows that were there originally. I think we should, no objections, if not support.
Thank you. Anthony?
Just the material that the windows are made from, obviously, as we all know, it really should be wood to follow on with the other buildings in the row.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll make sure we have that in there. Thank you. And next one is the Oddfellows Hall, Think BDA Limited. What do members think? Mark?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we've got a big problem here. This is a retrospective, well, half of it's a retrospective application for windows on the north-east prospect. The southwest haven't been done yet, although the whole has been made. They're proposing dropping the skylights further down the roof, so they'll now be on the level with bedrooms of neighbours. It's not frosted glass, it's non-reflective glass. They did put an application in December, last August to reposition these. They were then, I believe, Catherine told us, told that it wasn't just a variation, it had to be a new application, hence we have this. But they've done half the work. There, as we speak tonight, there are 7 objections to it, including Councillor Warren White, who says it's overlooking other people's properties and windows and it should be refused. That's coming from the cabinet member for planning. That's interesting. A big problem we've got here is I went to look at the previous applications, which we went down to Aylesbury and we fought quite strongly, but we lost. But at that time there were 14 objections. All those objections have disappeared from the portal, which is something that Catherine has raised previously. This is unacceptable. We cannot check the history now of problems like this, and if a plan went to appeal, we'd probably find that all the comments have been removed from that as well. So we're actually being denied the history of these sites. I think we have to oppose this on the grounds that they've been lowered down. They are now at eye level for people in the rooms. They're looking straight into bedrooms of other people or over the gardens, properties of other people. Every single objection refers to privacy, and I think this is a very strong point that we must refuse this application to reposition them lower down the roof.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your comments there. Do members agree that we object to this on those grounds? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, could we then ask Catherine if she can raise this problem about the previous comments being removed from planning applications, because it's not a true record. We're still there as the town council. Any Shire councillor comment stays there, but any member of the public, their comments are just erased, and it's not really our job. I know Catherine does a very good job in this. She does keep paper copies of most of them, but eventually, you know, she's going to be pushed out of her house by this. So we need to perhaps put a representation through to Shire Planning that these comments should not be removed from
Yeah. Catherine, are you happy to get back on that?
Can I also mention the fact that that section drawing is not there on the original application, although it's listed in the decision sheet as one of the plans to be adhered to, and so I can't actually measure the distance of where the window is supposed to be and where it now is.
Wow, that is shocking. Not surprising, but shocking.
Could you also note, please, that the there's no planning notice for that either at the moment. Oddfellows Hall for the variation.
Okay, well, I'm sure when that goes up, we'll get a lot more objections.
I've got the notice was put up on the 12th of February to run till the 5th of March.
Oh, right.
The only notice that is missing is the Pytel one, the next one, but they don't always put one up for amended plans anyway. So
okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, all right, so we're objecting to that one. So now our big one, amended plans, garage site, Pytel Crescent. Members' thoughts on the amendments that they've come back with? Anthony.
Thank you. I'll speak more or less on behalf of the Buckingham Society on this, because I know other people will dive in, but certainly they were fairly upset by the term dense scrub when we're talking about mature trees, and it gives a very misleading written description. You've only got to look at a photograph and see that's a rather nonsense statement to make, and should be changed, I think. Secondly, as Roger, before he left, did mention, we're quite keen that at least the cabling for charging electric cars is installed at the time of building. Not suggesting that chargers should be put on at that point, but it would be very easy to cable it and blank plate it. And then if and when people wanted to use in the future, because these aren't going to be here for quite a long time, once they want to charge an electric car, they've got the necessary cabling all in place. It seems a small thing, but a very sensible thing. So certainly those were two of the issues that we certainly discussed at our meeting.
Yeah, well, that goes along with our environmental policies as well. And it saves the homeowner a lot of grief having to install them after the effect if they're just put in to start with. So yeah. Paul Hymans, you had your hand up, and then Mark.
I did, but Mark will probably cover it. Because basically they haven't answered. They've answered the queries that the well, I was going to say the district council, the county councils put up, but they still haven't addressed their issues. And while they haven't addressed their issues, I don't see why we should change our response.
Absolutely. Mark?
Ditto, exactly what I was going to say. Thank you, Paul.
I thought it might be.
Okay, so members happy to oppose this?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, Robin?
Just to clarify, obviously my abstention on this, but how are you going to pursue this as a planning committee thereafter? Because evidently it's an amended plan stroke alterations come back. Obviously this is a new, I believe, to advise differently, the clock has now started again on this as an application. So are you going to have a form of consultation with your Shire, Buckinghamshire councillors to call this in. Now, obviously, you'll get my support, but I would be quite keen if somebody else was to do it, because I've got a lot of call-ins already by name. I'm happy to do it, but I shouldn't be Buckinghamshire's councillor who calls all applications in Buckingham. Could be a stage where I'm in a meeting, both being representing a call-in and speaking to an application, and that might be a very confusing meeting for everyone there, including me. And as I haven't, and I'll have to declare on every application that I ever took part in your meeting, which is why I constantly have that I haven't taken part in your meeting, and why the committee clerk records that, because I'm sure there'll be questions about you must have this, that, and the other. So I'm treading a line with these things, and I'm conscious that your view is important. So can you please decide how you wish to proceed on it as a planning committee, and if that involves me, I'll be advised that is the case.
Well, we do have the who we're going to ask on our agenda, don't we? Which is
8.2.
Yeah, 8.2. So we'll discuss that when we get to that point, if you don't mind, Robin. Thank you. Okay, so we're objecting to this one. And next one, are there not consultation, the trees, and I believe Catherine's had responses back for all of these already.
Yep.
Anybody want to discuss anything on that, or we move straight to 7? Cool. So planning decisions. Does anybody want to discuss any of these planning decisions? Mark?
Yes, so thank you, Chairman. I'd like to express my disappointment on 71 Oban Crescent and 14 Glinswood Road. Both of these applications we were strongly opposed to. We wanted them called in. Neither was called in. Oban Crescent, Warren White objected to and made very strong comments against it, but it was delegated to planning officer to decide, to delegated for decision, with the comment, it should be noted, these comments do not notify the member may wish to call in the application, and it was received outside the 28-day consultation. The other one, Glinswood Road, was delegated and decided. Apparently Councillor Mordew, on meeting up with the planning officer, was persuaded that there wasn't enough planning issues for it to be opposed, which of course goes against what we as a town council planning committee decided. So again, we've got this problem where a shire councillor is not necessarily supporting us when we ask to call it in. And again, this might be sorted out when the constitution is revised. We are told this is unlikely to be much before April, even if then, with the elections coming up. So it's just really, I think we should note this, that we are not getting our fair chance, you know, to oppose in front of the relevant committees.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like that's the whole reason that we're a statutory consultee, and if our voices aren't being heard, then what's the point in us discussing them? And yeah, I totally agree with everything that you've said. Robin?
Not for these ones, but for the historical applications prior to the constitution changing, of which we haven't seen the wording for, because that will probably go to the next council of the Buckinghamshire Council to be affirmed, I would imagine, the decision to be affirmed and voted on. I understand, and I seek some clarification by the clerk, that those historical applications which were prior to the Buckinghamshire Council being formed, I think, if I stand corrected, I've seen correspondence where I think I remember reading this, and I'm usually not bad at remembering things, will be dealt under the same rules as the application was actually done. So some of our historical applications, of which predate the Buckinghamshire Council, it could be that we automatically have rights to attend on those per se, because they were taken under a different legal framework. And we've got lots of applications like that. What we are unclear about, if you remember, if you just in the previous meeting, it premised that 95% of all applications will be determined by officers.
Yeah.
So whether that means many of those will come under that way, but I think we need clarity on that. I'm happy to say I believe that to be right, but I think it'd be useful to have a conversation about the terminology of that, because one of these applications might come up between now and the Constitution being changed, and we need to be sure if that's the case, because they won't be under the calling rules which were under the new Constitution. So I think we need to clarify that, because many applications that Catherine's, I think she said 54 or something, waiting.
No, those are in general, Councillor Stutchbury. This is why you have a list of call-ins that go back to all the ones that we have opposed as your Appendix E.
Yeah, I mean, but just please, can we see clarity on that? Don't take.
If you recollect, back in the beginning of the Unitary Authority, Mrs. Kitchen circulated a list of applications we'd opposed and asked for committee on, and a few of them were taken up by Shire councillors, but the majority were not.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Some of them have had decisions made, like Crone Close, but Osier Way was on there, and that, you know, you took up that one. Station House, you know, things. If you look down the decision column, that quite a lot of them have already been decided. We're not very many pre-unitary ones still outstanding.
Oh, okay, thank you for that. That's good.
Oven Garage site is one of them, and Osier Way is one.
But Osier Way is going to be the definitive application that defines Buckingham in many ways, isn't it? So, and I'm not sure when that's going to come forward, or whether it'll be at an inconvenient conjuncture with an election.
We haven't got that on the agenda, so can we move on through the agenda?
No, I know, but Chairman, I only mentioned it as the clerk.
No, it's an important one that we need to keep our eyes on, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Right, so 7.2. We've got first one, Station House, Tindrick Road, Planning Inspectorate. Would anybody like to speak on this? Nope. Mark?
Chairman, just to say that the inspector made some very flattering comments about Station House, about how it is a very good example of industrial architecture, its strong historical connections. Catherine's been down there, and although she said it's not the most beautiful of sites, it is not an unattractive house. Somewhere underneath all that, and so I've suggested that we ask that it could be considered for listing. And to his credit, the senior heritage officer came back very quickly, said they are compiling a local list of possible future things. I think Sheena would like to say something on this.
Yeah, Sheena.
Thank you. I was also going to note that the inspector made good use of the Buckingham Neighbourhood Development Plan in reaching their decision as well, which is nice to know that the inspectorate will do that, if not perhaps the Shire Council on occasions.
Absolutely. Thank you. Right, 7.2.2. Appendix D, attached for discussion. Would anybody like to talk on this? Mark, do you want to?
Well, about the listing, that's just what I mentioned, wasn't it, as part of. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nothing to add.
Okay, thank you.
Do members wish me to pursue this listing idea then? It involves quite a lot of work with presentation, history, photographs, and it's not an easy site to photograph when you haven't got permission to enter.
Yeah.
Apart from it being sort of shoulder deep in brambles.
Okay.
I would prefer to just go with the heritage man saying that, it's not likely to it's a building of local interest, as the inspector noticed. But if we couldn't get the hospital listed, we had a really good presentation on that. Orwell Street School, for which we had the original plans.
Good point.
To get Station House listed, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think we let it go.
There is a possibility, which I'll just mention briefly because it'll be for another day. Neighbourhood plans are increasingly picking up, obviously they can't list buildings, but they can list things that are considered to be heritage assets to the town, which can come under the sort of general, not quite the design code, but it would certainly be the sense of place. So that might be something that we could consider going forward, because I think there's been a number of areas that have been indicated that might be sort of heritage, which might avoid, it won't have the force of listing, but it has got some sort of weight of being identified as being important to the town.
Yeah, no, I like that, Sheena. Brilliant. That's good news. Mark?
Just to say, we do have the neighbourhood plan development meeting this week. Perhaps Paul, we could discuss that at that meeting. That'd be a good topic.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so 8.1. We haven't got any other than Robin. Have you got anything under 8.1, Robin?
I've said what I said about what I've done within council. Many of the things we've already said within the agenda, really.
Yeah.
So we don't need to.
8.2. Who should we ask? So the only one that we've opposed is the title, the garage.
No, there's Oddfellows as well.
Oh yeah, sorry, Oddfellows as well. So looking at the list, the only councillors that haven't agreed to call in an application is Simon Cole and Charlie Clare. Robin's called in 6 for us. Warren's done 2, Howard 1, Tim 1, Simon and Charlie 0 each. The trouble is we're not going to get any comment back from Simon Cole because he doesn't at all anyway. And we don't want to let these two go.
Clare doesn't answer either. I don't get a refusal. I don't get anything.
Yes.
Does he actually exist now, or has he just resigned and gone off? And do you see him, Robin, on Zoom?
Who, Simon or Charlie?
I see Charlie exists.
Simon, I'm concerned about.
Simon. I see his apology. I see this. But Simon, I have not been privileged to meet him in a meeting. I do believe he was at one of the Buckinghamshire Council meetings at the beginning of the cycle because he spoke at it.
Yeah, so, he's on the webcast.
So he spoke on the webcast. So
yeah, so we know he exists at least.
So what I think we must presume is that he's probably not going to be wishing to carry on in the future. Perhaps he is.
But if he is, then we make sure that residents know exactly how helpful he's been.
I mean, let's not make it personal. We're just worried about what the workload is.
It's personal to the town council when we're told that this is a way that we have to work, and we try and work to those restrictions, and then we get 0 back from them. That's just uncalled for. So who are we going to ask for Oddfellows and the garage, Anthony?
May I suggest Warren for Oddfellows Hall, because I believe he's already dealing with it and it's logical.
Yeah.
And secondly, I think Councillor Clare really does have to pull his weight with respect, and we give him Pythal Close.
Yeah. Okay. Agreed. Yeah. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman.
Yep.
Because your views are, if let's not get timed out on it through lack of response.
Yeah, that's important.
I you know, if you do need me to call it in, yes, I'll call it in.
Thank you.
But I don't want you to be in the situation, as the deputy chairman mentioned earlier, where someone didn't call an application in, and you didn't get to speak on it, and it was basically you were boxed out. The job of the Buckinghamshire Council is not to when you call an application in, and what you are not doing is stressing a view on an application. You're not determining it for or against. What you actually are doing is you're ensuring the views of the town or parish council are heard. You're not at that point making a determination. It's not really for you to determine the planning reasons either. You are not a planner. Right. What you are going to your job is simple, really, is to take forward the views of the town / parish council, whoever it is, to the planning committee. If there's no planning reasons, it wouldn't get called through. So I don't understand how councillors can become planners and come back with answers. I can't find any planning reasons, because I wouldn't be that confident that I understood all the planning myself.
But the thing is, you've raised a good point, that they're meant to be a conduit for us, for our voice, and we're a conduit for our.
They're not there to determine whether what the town council says is of worth. That is what the planning committee is there to determine.
Exactly.
And then the planning committee can hear your view and determine it on its value.
Yep.
What we aren't there to do is to fetter the opinion. And I think this is what they've misunderstood, apart from Councillor White, from the onset. You know,
I think we get that, Robin, and I think what you're telling us, we know, but your colleagues clearly don't. So maybe direct what you're saying to us now, which we understand the process. It's your peers in the Shire Council. It's them. It's your colleagues that clearly don't understand what their own policy says. Okay, let's move on. So we've got an updated list of undecided, opposed and attend call-ins. Would anybody like to discuss anything on Appendix E? Nope. Okay. So on to item 9. Mark, as Vice Chair, would you mind taking over? I need to visit the little ladies. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so item 9, no Buckinghamshire applications on the 10th of February, and there were none on the 11th of February. And as Catherine says here, the March agenda are not yet available. Consultations, item 10, to receive for information Buckinghamshire Council's response to the government consultation, public service infrastructure and permitted development. Paul has put together appendix. Was it you, Paul, I believe? Just I know it's a letter from them, isn't it? That's Warren White. Is that just for noting, Paul?
Yes, it's a courtesy because we sent them ours.
Yep. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting. Oh, fine. All right. It's the
Suppose we note it.
Yeah. I mean, are we just noting that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on then to item 10.2 to discuss whether to respond to the Milton Keynes Plan Supplementary Planning document, which you've got as Appendix G there. Anyone have any comments? John?
Yes, I would say that we don't. It's the southeast part of Milton Keynes. It's quite a long way away from we are. I don't think we have any view about it.
Has anyone else got a comment, or we agree with John, with Robin?
I think we have to make clear why we're not commenting on it, because, as John says, it's the southeast part of it. Because there's been an awful lot of, let's say, false comments about these things, that the Milton Keynes 50 study was a development plan when it was a study. That was, and I think we have to make clear why we're not commenting on it, and that it isn't something that directly implements on Buckingham. I think we have to be quite clear about that. I know John says we won't make a comment, but there's been a lot of words said about the Milton Keynes development on different parties. So I don't know if people do that. I mean, I'm sure there'll be something said about it in the forthcoming weeks.
Thank you, John.
As I just said, it's only about the southeast of Milton Keynes near Wavendon. It's nowhere near where we are. That's the reason for us not giving our comments on it. It's not the whole Milton Keynes planning ambitions. It's about one particular corner of Milton Keynes that's a long way away from Buckingham. That's the reason for us. I'm suggesting that we don't bother giving our views on it.
Could I ask Paul Hirons? Paul, you're chairman of the North Bucks Parishes Planning Consortium.
Well, we don't usually go as far as that. Don't forget the original of the North Bucks was to try and stop development coming from Milton Keynes. You know, by definition, it was to try and keep Milton Keynes totally out of it. By that, we wouldn't comment. I don't think we've got anything in this, but the only thing is that the A421 and the traffic does affect us if there's anything which might increase the flow of traffic along the 421, which means Buckingham, as opposed to other routes into Milton Keynes. Now, I don't think there's anything there, but you can't automatically say that it doesn't concern us because traffic from Milton Keynes is pretty large, you know.
Thank you. So, John, you're saying do nothing about it. Is that a proposal? Because Robin obviously would like to do something about it. So, first of all, let's take John's proposal. Can I have a seconder? I'll second it, that we don't pursue that. Robin, do you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, Paul makes a good point. That they're not commenting on these things sometimes can be a regret. But I think if we don't comment on them, I mean, John jumped straight in. That's what I said. I was actually reaffirming that we need to make a clear verbal statement around why we're not commenting on it. Just not commenting on it isn't strong enough. I do think that we need to be reassured that the traffic issues may come back at us. And earlier on in the meeting, you recall that we discussed the expressway and we also discussed the ARC, didn't we? And so we are interested in where growth goes, whatever. This doesn't show any of that, but it might be that as Paul said, the devil is the A421. And the amount of traffic that trunks down through Buckingham tries to make its way round the bypass and heads towards the M40. It's a major road link as it is. So I think if we don't comment, we should at least explore, make comment that if nothing else, we're not comment to say, but we are worried about the increased traffic from the A421 because the bypass is now was built in 1979 to 1982, I think, when it was opened. I think I drove along it before it was opened, but you know, it's now reached its capacity, hasn't it? And it's well over capacity, isn't it, at peak time? So I think when Paul says about traffic, he's been, as he was in the transport industry, he's probably got a bit of knowledge about traffic and lorries.
Don't go on about that, because I remember having a presentation from the Ministry of Transport. Some quite senior people came up to Lancashire and they said, well, now this shows how old I am. By 1975, the M1 and M6 will be completely saturated and we'll have to build another motorway up the centre of the country. So that was 45 years ago and nothing's happened. So I wouldn't necessarily expect anything to happen soon.
Well, the M40 got built, didn't it?
Right, we have
but it wasn't this big. This was one that went right up along by the Pennines and the whole way to Scotland.
Yeah, we have a proposal. John Harvey's proposed it. I've seconded it. All those in favour that we do nothing further about this? Paul, do you want to count?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And those against the motion?
1, 2.
1, 2. You're not abstaining on this one, Robin?
No, because it's not a planning matter.
Thank you. And Lisa's back, but Lisa, if I just finish off the consultations,
Yeah,
10.3
please.
Buckinghamshire Local Plan, Statement of Community Involvement, Appendix H, that is for, that as it says, is to note the attached information. Everyone's happy with that? Thank you. Back to Chairman Lisa.
Thank you so much, Mark. Okay, item 11, enforcement. So, Mark, you're up with the 2 cars. We've already discussed it under the action report anyway. So, are you happy that we let Paul look into the legalities of what we discussed earlier? Has anybody else got anything? Robin?
Just to say that I think Paul's, if he finds the legal route through this, we should do a press release on it. If there's a legal route for it, it just shows that we are using the powers which have been given us, and it just sends a strong signal about the clutter on the bypass, doesn't it? And I'm being asked about it, and it's been a conversation on social media, and it's like now people are giving up commenting about it on social media now because they just think nothing will happen. So I think the press release would be appropriate from the committee, maybe something that can be done through the chairman and the planning clerk and the town clerk. Probably some words from Councillor Cole, because he brought it here.
Absolutely. Anthony?
Could we note that it's also a distraction to moving traffic, and as such is a danger?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 12, applications to fell trees. We've got the updated list. Would anybody like to discuss this item? No? Okay. Item 13, matters to report. Sorry, Kath.
I just wanted to know, because this list is growing and growing, how you'd like it edited down. Can I take off the things that are approved that are 2 years old? Because what you wanted originally was a sort of view of how we've been doing. But, you know, we can't keep on providing an extra bit every time forever. I just wanted to know what members what can be weeded out next time.
Okay, good point for discussion. Members, what do we think? Would it be appropriate to take off the approved, or do we want to keep note of all of the trees? Robin?
I think that I know Catherine's keeping a record of how many trees are lost in Buckingham, and what we've lost probably in the past 12 months.
That's this list, Robin.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is that I'm trying to get to, Chairman, is that we should do some sort of cognitive commentary on the amount of trees which have been lost in Buckingham. I think it's the time to do it now. We've got some reasonable photographs of different trees that have gone against, so that people are aware that all these trees have gone. It's too late if we don't comment. We wait another 12 months. Looking at this list of proposals and non-proposals, the skyline of Buckingham will look somewhat less green. And I know that some of them are done for really good reasons, and some of them are done for not so good reasons. But the only one that isn't on here, before I finish, is the Leylandi opposite myself on the way into Meadway were taken down last week. There was consultation with the residents from Transport for Butts because over that they were taken down. because they were prejudicing the resident's house, you know,
Okay.
which is the insurance thing again, which seems to be a theme, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I do think we need to comment on it and pick some of just a press release on it, just because we've got the council's an environmentally council, and the one thing that does improve the environment is trees, and the one thing the trees do is produce oxygen, and the other thing they do is take in carbon monoxide. So the loss of these trees, big lungs, aren't a good thing. We may argue which ones. We could pick some of the key cases out and do a press release on it.
Can I just ask a quick question of Paul, Town Clerk? Because we've got our environmental impact, and we've got policies on sustainability and stuff now. Have we got any section on our actual website where we could list the trees and keep a rolling record on our website, so that maybe this list doesn't go on to 6, 7, 8 pages each meeting, but we have a record of it somewhere that the public can see? They don't have to then trawl through our minutes and agendas. I want it to be as open and as public as possible, because this affects all of us and our children and our grandchildren. Is there anywhere on our website we could keep a rolling list?
It's certainly possible. Yeah, we'll have a look into it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Paul Hirons?
Yeah, I mean, I always hear all this, and yet when I look out of my bedroom window, I can see less and less of Buckingham. Councillor Stutchbury is forgetting that actually trees grow. And you start with a little thing about a foot long, and you leave it 20 years, and it's about 30 or 40 feet high and covering it up. And so what we're going to do is you look at it, and it will appear that Buckingham is a desert, whereas in fact, desert, as far as I can tell, and from what I can see, it is getting more green than it was when I came here 40 years ago. So I don't think we've got to worry quite as much as people say. And I think what we ought to do is look for key trees, which in fact, some of those that I really rather was upset about up Page Hill, where those very nice ones on the road. But a lot of the stuff that we're getting all worked up about, really not very interesting. And what's more, if you leave it, there'll be another tree growing up, and before you turn round and look, there'll be another big tree there. That's what happens, and that's what's happening in Buckingham all the time. So if we do a list, it's also got to include every tree which now reaches, I don't know, 10 feet high.
I don't know how possible that is. I mean,
you can't do just one without the other.
Well, we can, you see, because we've not just in planning, but in the Environment Committee, we've discussed having a list of the loss of our trees, so we can actually have a list.
Not putting about the growth of them, the ones we're gaining. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, but we do need to take note of the ones that we're losing. Catherine?
I have to point out that the list is only of protected trees that have been felled and trees in the conservation area that have been felled. Trees like the Leylandi that Robin was talking about are not included because they're not protected and they're not in the conservation area. There are trees all around the edge of town that could be going down, which I wouldn't know about unless I happened to be passing at the time they were being chopped.
Yeah, or you're notified by a resident, or we're notified by a resident. Absolutely.
But I mean, if it's a garden tree and it's not in the conservation area and isn't protected, I mean, the trees on Page Hill were actually protected and they were still felled. So
yeah, absolutely. Robin?
I draw people's attention back to the Chandos Road and the concern about the western cedar and lorries and spruce and stuff. Also, the evidence that anyone who understands anything about a tree, especially an indigenous tree, one which is native to this country, what it provides is habitat for birds to nest, tree creepers. It also provides somewhere for butterflies and moths to nest. It also provides somewhere for bats to roost. It also provides food for tons of species aside. It also provides pests which feed other birds because it's got a natural disease cycle. So when you lose a tree, you lose an ecosystem and you lose an environment. Now, I'm sure Buckingham is changing, and I'm sure if you look at it across the town, there's still trees there. What I'm concerned about is the incremental change get to a point where we could look like some of the towns which talk about trees but haven't got anywhere as near as many as we are. If you drive into some of the towns in South Buckinghamshire, they've not got anywhere near the amount of green trees that we've got. They haven't got any amount of the avenues that we've got, and they haven't got Stowe on their doorstep. So, you know, we are very lucky, but we have to cherish it. And all those plants, all those trees, plus there's the fungi that live underneath them. There's a thing called the mitochondria, which go between the trees that feed each other and they talk to each other. There's also all the other things that feed on the fungi, which lay under the tree, but go through. And actually, they all exist with each other and they are always connected to each other.
There's a massive ecosystem. You're right.
So when we say, oh, it looks greener than it has been, there's a difference between maintenance of trees and loss of trees. Let's not be too different. So I think we do need to make a press release about it. We as a council said we wish to be more environmentally friendly. We as a council have agreed that as a policy. And there's nothing less environmentally friendly than taking out an ecosystem, a large oak or a large tree, which has provided something for everyone else. So I'm happy to be questioned and defeated on it, but I do believe that this is the time to say it before it's gone. It's too late to say it when it's gone.
Absolutely. Anthony.
Thank you, Chair. The first question, I think, is are these data of value, and are they of value beyond somewhat transitory observations? If they are, would it not be reasonable, if they're in a spreadsheet, to actually open a fresh page in the spreadsheet each year and only put items dated for that year in there and only present the current year or current year and a half, whatever. But then we do keep an archive, and if we want to run any statistics in the future, we do actually have the raw data to be able to do that, because we might think it's pretty transitory at the moment, but it could be useful in the future.
Yeah, I think having a database, a spreadsheet, that's something that the office can do anyway, and that's kind of what this list is, I'd imagine. But if we can let Paul look to see if we can have like something on our website, and then maybe we can reduce this list, which is what Catherine was asking us. If we can reduce the list that we're seeing on our agendas, then can we maybe put that on our next agenda? If you come back to us, Paul, and let us know if we can have the information on our website, we can perhaps remove some stuff from our list, our rolling list. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, Paul, sorry.
Yeah, I do think you're really looking at this the wrong way, because just this afternoon, I cut down 4, well, they're not trees, but they will be if you leave them for about 20 years. If anyone, and Councillor Stutchby ought to know this perfectly well, this is brilliant country for growing trees. So you leave a patch of land, and if you left it 50 years, you'd have a wood. And if you don't, even if you don't live it that long, you know, I'm forever having to cut down stuff so I can actually get to my house. You know, machete stuff, that's a bit of an over-exaggeration. But we're cutting, when you cut one down, it makes a space and it allows some new ones. A lot of these old trees, really, most trees have a life. Okay, if you're talking about an oak, it can be very long, but there's a sycamore has very little life, really. And they come and replace them. So you need to cut them down and refresh them.
All right, I am going to move this on because it's just going backwards and forwards like a
Okay,
tennis
Can,
match.
can
Okay.
I just
No,
record that?
no,
I
no, no,
respect
no.
Councillor
I'm
Hiram's
moving.
view. I just
No,
disagree
I'm
with it.
moving on. Moving on. Okay. So I've got no chairman's items. Oh, Mark, sorry.
Yep, item 13, matters to report.
Oh, I thought we'd done that. Sorry.
I thought we were on trees, sorry. It was a,
Oh, we were.
Yeah.
Sorry. Matters to report.
right, just to say, a lot of people have complained to me, and I noticed Buckingham, What Matters Facebook is also buzzing with it. The state of the bypass between the Bletchley Road roundabout and the Tesco roundabout, absolutely dreadful now. I counted 27 potholes there this morning. They've all been reported weeks ago, nothing has happened. And likewise, the A413 between the Bletchley Road roundabout, between Bolton roundabout and the old Stratford roundabout, the Stratford Road roundabout, nothing has been done about that bridge, which is collapsing on the road, is collapsing both sides. It's becoming a disgrace now, as well as a danger.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Cole.
Robin, then Martin.
Both Councillor Cole and I have both reported that Stratford Road Bridge.
Yeah.
Councillor Cole raised it in the first place, but since he's raised it, it's actually deteriorated considerably. When you get back, the potholes and the bits are appearing now. If you come back towards Embleton Way, in the dark the other night when I went to get some petrol, I hit a damn great pothole there. I've not been back in the daylight to see where it is. It went bang. I mean, it is falling back, but we want members. Some parts of the bypass have been fixed, but that area of the bridge, the roundabouts were done, weren't they? And then they stopped short on that area and didn't do that area of road.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it's in a scheme to be done, but the bridge is. I mean, they're roads starting to fall apart to such a degree that it must be damaging the structure of the bridge underneath. And if they neglect it to a point,
under it, and there's no sign of damage underneath at all.
No,
okay, I think we need a structural engineer to actually determine.
I'm just saying that if you persist like this, part of the structure of the bridge was the tarmac over the top of it, which is the cushioning. It can't be doing it any good.
Oh no, okay, I agree.
And at the joints, it looks to me, and I'm not a structural engineer, but it looks to me that it's fracturing at the joint of the bridge and the highway, which suggests that that's where it's fracturing. Now we might not see any of it underneath because that won't actually be visible when you walk under it.
Correct.
If you look at it, it looks to be at the joint of the concrete plinth of the bridge. That's where it's fracturing.
Yeah.
Where there's a definite weakness between the two bridges. It moves.
Yeah.
So they're neglecting a bridge. I mean, if it does get beyond repair, well, that would be a major job to repair that. And shutting that road to repair that would be horrendous. And we'd have traffic going through Buckingham, wouldn't we, instead of going along that road or rerouting across the Coombs or routing across from one road to another to come down the A421. So I think we do need to sort of keep pushing on this. There hasn't been an answer. It's gone on Fix My Streets numerous times and it's never come up a winner yet, has it? No. So I don't know what the lottery win of it. Although they've had flooding in the past month to do, this predates that.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. Martin.
Yes, just to add to that road, Bletchley Road roundabout and Tesco, I think the trees also on the left-hand side need addressing because some of them are leaning, and if we have some high winds, they could come down and create a hazard. You know, they could easily be maintained before that happens, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, can we leave the office to report and reaffirm the bridge issue? It's going to cost them a lot more in the long term if it's if they don't come out and at least get a structural engineer to have a look at it, at least do a report. Robin.
Just before we move on, I did do a proposal that you seconded, that we did a press release on the tree stuff. So is that going to happen, or we just moved on? We never voted to do it. We didn't actually, or are we going to take those at the end? Because there's nothing about press releases at the end of the agenda, as I can see. If I've missed it, Chairman, I'll
No, we don't. No, you're right. We don't have anything on press releases at the end.
So can I take that now? I'm happy for Paul to prove me wrong in a vote.
We're not going backwards and forwards here, Robin.
No, but I tried to move it. I mean, you moved the agenda on, but there is nothing in the agenda where we voted on that. You know, you seconded me, but we never concluded it. It could be that we are the minority.
Okay, so you want a press release for my members so that they know what they're voting on?
Yeah, the press release on the it's just on the changing scene of Buckingham's landscape and the amount of trees that we have noted going missing, and to have a bit of social interaction. Because Catherine said it in one. She said, I only know the trees that are reported to me. I don't know all the ones which are reported to me. And Paul's opinion's got as much value as mine, but I'm happy for that to be defeated, but I'm happy to not to be decided.
All right, so members happy to do a press release on we have got an ever-growing list, which the public might be interested in anyway. And if we can get it on our website, that can be a push to show that we're going to keep a list running for members of the public to view. They don't have to trawl our minutes and agendas to find the information. Yep. Show of hands that we do a press release on the trees, lots of trees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those again. 1. No abstentions. Thank you.
Democracy, Paul.
Thank you very much.
At least we're barking up the right one, aren't we?
No.
If only it had ones that are added all the time.
Stop. You're not going backwards and forward, boys. No.
Oh, no, okay.
Right.
But I want to get more cut down.
Stop.
So I can see the town.
Stop.
Am I in a different council meeting here? Because I think there's another one on YouTube which is very like this.
Yeah, Paul, please persist, and it's very
entertaining. Nothing but fun, Martin. Nothing but fun.
We are still live.
We are. Is there any other matters to report? No. All right. Thank you. Okay. So I don't have any chairman's items for information. Date of next meeting is the 22nd of March. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you, Catherine, Nina, Paul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, Sheena, sorry. Thank you, Sheena. I forgot you're still with us. Sorry, because you're so quiet.
Thank you, Chair, for coming back.